Whether you're picking and grinning or just grinning, grab a drink, pull up a seat. It's time for Roots Music Rambler. Turn it up. All right, I'm pissed off. I'm aggravated.
What?
And I need to tell everybody why I'm pissed off.
Please. Should I be scared?
No, I'm not pissed off at you. So here's the thing.
Okay, cool.
Here's the thing. So since you and I last got together to record one of these things, we've had the Grammys and Beyonce won big. And I when we were doing our year end stuff, I was like, I got to put Beyonce up there. It's a really good album. I was glad that she won Album of the Year. I was also, perfectly fine with her winning the Country Album of the Year too. But the response from people on social media was just offensive to me. That like, she's not country. She didn't deserve this. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, that's fine. You can have that opinion. I'm not saying you can't have that opinion, but it just irritated me. And then kind of back to back off of that, we had the Super Bowl. Kendrick Lamar's halftime show was symbolically brilliant. And from a written standpoint, if you were to write out the script for it and you looked at, now you know why the guys won a Pulitzer Prize. Like,
right.
he's so genius in what he does. And there were a bunch of people on my social media feed. I couldn't understand what he was saying. We need a country Super Bowl. Now, so yeah, I'm gonna rant a little bit here about people bitching about Kendrick Lamar, Beyonce, happen to be people of color, happen to be, doing something creative and innovative with their music. And there's a bunch of people bitching about it, mostly white, probably mostly Southern, probably mostly conservative. And I'm not trying to make this a political thing, but I'm going to flip the narrative on you too, because I also am sick and fucking tired of people saying, bro, country sucks. That's not real country music. Bring back Alan Jackson. You know what? If you don't like a style of music, that's fine. You don't have to like it, but there's no goddamn reason to shit on it.
Right.
Shut the fuck up. Let people enjoy their goddamn music. I don't understand why we have to hate music that we don't listen to, that we don't understand, that we don't even give a chance. And people are just fucking negative Nancy bullshitting all over people's musical tastes on the internet. And it's fucking dumb. It's just stupid. I don't like bro country myself, but I don't shit on it because you might like it. And that's okay. You're entitled to that fucking opinion. I might have something to say about a person's character who's a piece of shit because of they put their hands on women or they sexually assault someone or whatever, but I'm not going to shit on their music because that doesn't have anything to, in my mind, that doesn't have anything to do with anything other than that song's nice. I like that song. I like to listen to it on the radio, whatever. Now, I'm not going to go out and buy somebody. I'm not going to buy Morgan Wallen records. I'm not going to buy Chris Brown records. I'm not going to buy anything that has anything to do with P. Diddy, right? I'm not going to support someone who I suspect to be, or Kanye, who I suspect to be either insane or a criminal.
Right.
Right. I'm not going to support that kind of person, but I'm also not going to shit on you because you listen to them. And I'm not going to shit on their music because everybody has the right to have an individual opinion about whatever music they hear. And just because you don't agree with me or you don't agree with somebody else doesn't mean it's wrong or bad or right or good. Listen to what you want to listen to. Enjoy and celebrate what you listen to. Let other people enjoy and celebrate what they listen to. And drop the fucking hate. It's just counterproductive. It doesn't do anything but piss people off. And we've got too much negativity in the world anyway.
Yeah, well, you said drop the fucking hate, and you could take that out of this context, and apply it to so many other contexts that are taking place in our country at the moment. So it's not surprising, right? So I think we've just gotten so comfortable as a society in just sharing and spewing our hate without really considering our audience or who is consuming what we're saying. It's just gotten to the point where we don't even think about it. And there are a lot of factors. And, another one is social media. People have gotten used to just taking to social media and bitching and, putting other people down. And it's carried over into their face-to-face interactions as well. I see that in my 8th grade classroom. Okay. So it's not just adults, but the day after the Super Bowl, when they were all coming in, I knew what they were going to be talking about. And I didn't say a word. I just observed, I listened. And admittedly, I did not watch the Super Bowl because I couldn't care less about the game. And I just wasn't interested. I'm not a football person. So I don't watch the Super Bowl as a rule. And Kendrick Lamar, I mean, I know of him. I know what's like the big stories that have been in the news about him, but I don't have an opinion on him one way or the other, So I wasn't like, I was like, oh, I got to watch it. I got to see what Kendrick does. It wasn't like that at all. But yeah, I think we've just gotten so comfortable sharing those hate-filled thoughts and ideas and not really considering what other people, how they might feel about it. And it just speaks to an idea or a thought that I've had this whole school year. And because I see it with my students, is there is such a lack of empathy.
Yeah.
And it's carrying over into even, I mean, here we are, we're a music podcast, right? And we're talking about it because it is seeping into every aspect of our lives. And it's really concerning. It really is.
Well, I'll not go any deeper on this rant than I already have, other than to say, when I hear people mouthing off about Beyonce's not country and Kendrick Lamar's halftime show was shitty, what I jump to, which I shouldn't, and I know I shouldn't, but what I immediately jump to is, you're a racist piece of shit. And you don't have the intellectual maturity to entertain something that's not something that you enjoy. That might be unfair of me. I'll admit that, but that's what I jump to. And I think that's what a lot of other people jump to. But again, flipping the script, when I hear someone shit on Jason Aldean or, Eric Church or any of these bro country guys, I think you are a uppity, condescending, left-wing prick. And maybe that's fair of me. Maybe that's not fair of me. It has some correlation, some parallels, obviously, to our political climate. I wish it didn't, but it does. Right. And it's just another thing that divides us. And I don't understand why anybody needs to hate some other style of music. You don't need to hate it. Just don't listen to it. It's okay.
Right.
I don't listen to bro country. I don't listen to opera. I don't listen to a lot of hip hop and R&B, but sometimes things surface that I like the beat or whatever, and I enjoy that. But I don't hate anything, and I certainly am not going to bitch at somebody because they love it, even if it is bro country or whatever.
So as I'm listening to your rant, and by the way, folks, you're just hearing it, I am seeing it. Right. I'm seeing Jason, thanks to our online interface here, and he's pissed. Okay. You could just tell by looking at him. But as I was listening and watching, it made me think, like, there's always conversation about separating the artist from the music, or even like athletes separating their off field or off ice persona from what they do for a living. And how does that factor into what you've been saying and what you're thinking, what you're feeling about people who are bashing bro country or Beyonce or insert genre or artist here? Like you said, you would not go buy a Morgan Wallen record, and neither will I. And then you also brought up Jason Aldean, who, again, don't care for his style of music, but his, offstage persona, it does not align with my beliefs. So, like, what, I don't know if I'm trying to ask, like, where do we draw the line, or is this something that is part of what you have considered prior to your rant?
So I think I know what you're asking. And I think when it comes to, like, for instance, I am not going to hate any style of music, and I can separate that from the artist. Hate is a strong word. I'm not going to hate another human being. I'm going to dislike their behavior, right? So people who put their hands on women or their spouses or whatever, people who take advantage of the weak, whether it be women, whether it be other genders, whatever, it doesn't matter whatever it is. I'm never going to condone or support those people. There is probably room, I think, in my mind and in my heart for forgiveness if they change their ways. You know, if they become a better person because they learn from their mistakes and whatnot, I can reserve some room for that. But I'm not gonna. It's not that I don't like or that I hate Morgan Wallen. I just don't talk about him because I don't have anything really positive to say. And my mom always taught me, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say it. Keep your fucking mouth shut.
Right.
And I think social media has somehow given us permission to say really negative shit and get away with it because we don't have the other person standing in front of us to punch us in the fucking mouth.
Right.
And I don't know. I don't like the culture, how our culture is evolving that way to where we're all trashing each other more than we are loving each other and complimenting each other and appreciating each other. And music is one of those art forms that everybody has some type of music that enriches them, that empowers them, that soothes them. Let's just celebrate that it does and leave the negative out of it. And it just irritates the shit out of me when I see people saying, Beyonce's not country. She's as country as she needs to fucking be. And the Grammys, which you can complain about Grammys one way or the other, but when a big chunk of the music industry says this was not only the best country album of the year, it's the best album of the year, I'm not necessarily going to have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I told you guys all along back in when it was released in February, March or whatnot of last year, I said, this is a really good album. It's different. It's something fresh. It's an interesting blend of genres, which I love. And
I know.
I would have never purchased probably because I just don't care for dance, R&B hip hop type music. I wouldn't have bought a Beyonce album before Cowboy Carter came out. Not that I don't like her or I don't like the music, because she's got some songs that I do like. Sure. Crazy in Love's a great song. Like it's shit you can, dance to, tap your foot to, whatever. I don't have anything against Beyonce at all. Not the kind of music I listen to, not something that I would want to have on vinyl. When I heard Cowboy Carter, when I went through it on Spotify for the first time, I'm like, I'm buying that fucking album.
Yeah.
It's good. And it is. I like it a lot. I've played it 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just trying. Please know and understand that I take full responsibility, personal 100% Jason Falls, not Francesca, responsibility for everything that I just said. And if I pissed you off, go fuck yourself and just shut up.
Okay.
How about that?
I agree and I applaud you. Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, anyway.
All right. Anyway.
Welcome to Roots Music Rambler. She's Frank.
And he's Pissed Off Falls.
And we're rambling on through the stories behind the music we love. And we're being positive about it. God damn it.
Here we go. Yes, rainbows and puppies and cupcakes now. From here on out, no more hate. All right, so today on the show, and there no hate with our guests today. There's all sorts of brotherly love, and it's so adorable. We are chatting with Will and Luke Mallett of the Mallett Brothers Band. So they've been around a while. They've built a loyal following of their fans. They're a mix of folk, rock, country, and roots music. They hail from Maine, like Griffin Williams Sherry, who was on the show last year. And the Mallett Brothers have a new album coming out in April.
That's right. The first couple singles from the new album are kind of rockin' tunes, somewhat reminiscent of bands like the Lumineers or even Turnpike Troubadours a bit. Great rock feel mixed in with more traditional and folk instrumentation as well. Really good stuff. The album is due out April 4th. It's called Higher Up in the Hills. 2 singles are already out, which we'll play snippets of in the show today. But there's so much interesting stuff to get into with these guys.
Oh, okay. What else? Do tell.
Well, they've built a sustainable, successful band without moving to Nashville or L.A. Their father, David Mallett, is a well-known folk singer who actually wrote the Garden song. So you remember, if you imagine John Denver or Pete Seeger singing Inch by Inch, Row by Row, gonna help this garden grow. Their dad wrote this song. So they are from folk royalty to a degree. They also have collaborated with, I think, one of the more fascinating people in the music business, in my opinion, Chuck Leavell. He's a major environmentalist who has lobbied Congress while touring and playing keys and being the musical director for the Rolling Stones. He's a former member of the Allman Brothers Band. He played piano on Eric Clapton's famous Unplugged album. There's after a song in there, you hear him, Chuck Leavell, and everybody, that's him. So super interesting guy. Will and Luke met him doing part of his PBS show about forestry, where he brings musicians in from different states and features them. Well, the Mallett Brothers got featured on an episode of that with Chuck Leavell. So I want to ask about that. Just super interesting dudes. I'm really excited to talk to Will and Luke today. It's going to be a blast.
Yes, for sure. And, well, it's going to be a good one talking to the brothers, but also on the show, we'll do our normal Pickin the Grinnin, share our picks for whose music is making us grin. They might be new artists. They might be old, but they sure will be good. And before we kick it all off, though, what's the latest, Jason, on your concert going? Who have you not reported back on?
Okay, so since we last talked, I believe, I went to see Charles Wesley Godwin at the Palace here in Louisville. Fantastic show. And I got to stop saying the word fantastic. I've called myself out on that.
You've said that.
I love that word. I don't know. It's really good. It was a really good show. Brilliant performance. His band, super into it. They're jumping around the stage, just like jamming with each other. And you could tell there was a lot of just love and energy there. Caleb Caudle opened up for him. And that's another one of those up and coming guys I'd wanted to see for a while. He was really good too. Enjoyed that show very much. And Charles Wesley Godwin's one of those guys. He doesn't get a lot of play on mainstream commercial radio. He gets a good amount of play, I think, and respect out of the Americana space. But he has built a very fervent, loyal following of fans, kind of the hard way, hitting the road, playing a bunch of gigs, writing great songs. I'm proud to say he's a fellow Mountaineer. He's from West Virginia and big WVU fan. And one of his songs is Cue Up Country Roads, which is Country Roads is obviously the West Virginia University kind of fight song and state song. The John Denver, Country Roads, Take Me Home. So
yeah.
He's got a version of that says Cue Up Country Roads about going home. And so
gotcha.
My favorite song of his, and this is one that really got a lot of people really, really into him, is called Minor Imperfections. It's minor, M-I-N-E-R, because his dad's a coal miner. And he wrote the song for his dad. And it's really a tribute to coal miners and the hardworking working class folks in that part of the country. And it resonates with a lot of people. So just there's a packed place at the Palace, and everybody was standing up and singing along really loud to all the songs. And it was a fun event to be there.
Nice.
The other update that I have for you, I told you last time, I think we talked, that my daughter wants to go to Bonnaroo.
Yeah.
Then Bourbon and Beyond's lineup came out. And so I negotiated with my children because they both wanted to go to Bonnaroo. And I'm like, God, this is going to be like $3,000. And golly. So I said, okay, here's your choice. We can go to Saturday, Sunday at Bonnaroo, stay in a hotel, Airbnb, whatever, go see the stuff that's going on there. Or I will do VIP level Bourbon and Beyond Saturday and Sunday, not the 4 days. That's too expensive. But I'll do VIP for the 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, for the three of us. And they, thank goodness, chose Bourbon and Beyond because it's going to save me about $1,000, maybe more. So I am now going to Bourbon and Beyond, which if you haven't seen the lineup for that, by the way, holy crap, it's good. It's really good.
I saw the lineup, but of course I can't remember anything about it.
I'll just kind of float through some of the headliners of the ones that I'm really excited. So Noah Kahan, which Katie was like, oh my God, Noah Kahan. Sturgill Simpson, the Lumineers,
right.
Fish, Alabama Shakes, Jack White, the Grammy TikTok dude, Benson Boone. He'll be there. He's going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats, who I love, Lake Street Dive. Ringo Starr and his all-star band. I mean, you get to see a Beatle. I don't care if it's just Ringo. I'll go. That's good. Joe Bonamassa. I mean, you just got the Pixies, Foreigner, even, for God's sakes. But for those of you for the folks we talk about a lot, Waxahachie will be there, Trampled by Turtles, Muscadine Bloodline, Iron and Wine, Mary Chapin Carpenter, 49 Winchester, Julian Baker and Torres, Dawes, like Spin Doctors, for God's sakes. I didn't even know they were still alive. Here's the little hidden gem. And there's always, I always complain about there's Ludacris is always on these damn things.
Right.
It always confuses the shit out of me. So there's a lot more peppered in of like older acts that are kind of, touring around doing their thing, trying to make a little extra money in their retirement or whatever. But one that I'm really excited about, and I'll just admit to this. It's not something I necessarily would go championing around town or anything like that, but I'm excited to see John Waite. And if you don't remember who John Waite is, his big hit in the 80s was Missing You. I ain't missing you at all. That guy. He was originally in the Babies, and then in the late 80s, early 90s, fronted the supergroup Bad English, which came together when some of the members of Journey, when Steve Perry left Journey, and then Neil Shane and Jonathan Cain, the keyboard player who was actually in the Babies with John Waite, they all got together and formed this like supergroup. And they had When I See You Smile was, I think, their big hit. The Missing You is one of those songs that every time it plays, I think of a specific girl who I had a crush on when I was in, I don't know, 3rd or 4th or 5th grade or something like that. And it just brings back memories, makes me feel like I'm, 10, 11, 12 years old again. Love that song. So I'm going to go see John Waite. That's going to be fun.
Oh, nice.
So
very good. Wow. Bourbon and Beyond. Hey.
Yeah. Now you've got some stuff on the calendar coming up too that's pretty good. And I just saw this. Drive By Truckers the other day announced a summer tour or an extension of their tour and 2 nights at Fitzgerald's.
And guess who got tickets to both nights?
I'm sure you did. I'd be disappointed if you didn't.
Yeah. So what had happened was, so when we did our year end, like our 2024 year end, and we were talking about shows that we have already set for 2025, I was like, well, I have a couple. Okay, well, it's gotten a little cray-cray. So as we're recording, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So I am going to Fitzgerald's. I probably should just like rent a room there or something. But anyway, I'm going to Fitzgerald's for friend of the show, Sarah Jean Stevens, her new EP release party. The new EP is called Lovesick. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And there's other stuff that's going to be going on and other guests that are going to be performing. Another friend of the show, Brandon Good, will be performing with Sarah Jean and stuff. So very excited about that. Okay, then, well, let me see. What else? Do I have anything in March, February, March, April? Okay, so April, the end of the month, Tom and I are going to Seymour, Indiana for the Crossroads Acoustic Festival. And friend of the show, Leon Meitzen, is playing a couple times. He's playing Friday and Saturday at Crossroads. And then others that are playing Magnolia Boulevard.
Yes.
They're from your neck of the woods, right?
Yep. Lexington, Kentucky. Yeah.
Saw them last year at American Music Festival at Fitzgerald's. And they weren't on like my docket, but I just happened to be in the room when they started playing. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is incredible.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see them again. Alex Williams is another one. I saw him a couple of years ago at the Law Office, which is another great venue that I talked about before. So he's playing there. So I'm excited about that. And I've wanted to check out Brown County, Indiana. There's a deep musical history there as well. So I'm excited for that. Then in the beginning of April, Patterson Hood is playing solo shows. So he's got 2 in Chicago. Of course, we're going to both. Then early May, I got tickets for the teen and I to see Lucy Dacus.
Nice.
Yes. So that's exciting. And I know I'm going to forget something. And then Drive By Truckers. Oh, Sunvolt. Sunvolt is also playing at Fitzgerald's.
Yes.
So got tickets for that. Then the Truckers, their 2 shows at Fitzgerald's in July. And I think that might be it for now.
Okay.
I may be forgetting something.
We do this every couple of weeks, so you can update us in the future on more. I was when I saw the Drive By Truckers thing, I knew the first thing I thought was 2 nights at Fitzgerald's. I know 2 people who are going at least. And then the second thing I thought was they are doing that tour stop closest to me in Indianapolis. And before I could ask, Karen sent me the screen capture of the receipt for tickets.
Oh,
so
nice.
We'll be going to that. So that'll be fun. And I don't think I've told anyone this yet either. So this is how insane things get, because I not only am a nut about going to see live music, but my girlfriend is too. Right. And so we had already purchased Ryan Adams' Heartbreaker tour tickets, Heartbreaker 25 tour tickets for Lexington, Kentucky. Well, he had announced an extension to the tour. And now we have tickets to Lexington, Kentucky, and then we have tickets to Louisville, Kentucky. And then we're going to go to Graceland and see him play at the new music venue at Graceland in Memphis. And then on the way back, we're going to stop and see him play in Nashville. So
holy shnikes.
So we're going to go see Ryan Adams 4 times. And if you don't know, Ryan Adams comes out on stage. It's really just him, and he plays for like 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So,
I've seen Ryan solo. Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I know Karen is crazy for Ryan Adams music. Yes. So that is exciting. Holy crap. That's a lot. Wow.
Yeah. I'm fired up because if you remember back when we first started the show, I talked about we were going to go to see Ryan Adams at Red Rocks, and his health got bad. He's got Meninger's disease. I can't remember if that might be pronouncing it wrong, but he's got an inner ear thing that keeps him from performing sometimes. So he had to cancel that show. I was kind of bummed because we were like in the 4th row or something. And
I remember.
Great. And I'll make it to Red Rocks at some point. I've never been to a show there, but I was really disappointed about that. Well, now I'm going to get, 4 times the Ryan Adams. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I've not seen him live. I like his music a lot. Not as much as Karen. Karen loves it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if he offered, she would leave me for him in a heartbeat. And speaking of heartbeat, yeah, she would definitely leave me for him, which I guess I would just be like, all right, I'm not
just
that
send
guy.
Me some money, okay?
Write a song about me or something there, dude.
There we go. There we go.
All right, we've been talking too damn much. It's time for a refill. We got to get geared up here for the big interview with Luke and Will Mallett. Take a moment, if you will, and listen to more from the awesome sponsors that make this show happen. When we come back, Luke and Will Mallett will join us from the Mallett Brothers Band. Can't wait to dig into some of these stories. Don't go away. This is Roots Music Rambler.
This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland, streaming on Prime Video March 27th.
That song is Dogs and Horses from the upcoming album Higher Up in the Hills. It's due out on April 4th. And Luke Mallett from the Mallett Brothers Band joins us. Luke, how are you?
I'm really, really good. Thanks for having me on here.
We're glad to have you. How's the snow in Maine these days?
It's deeper and deeper every day, every minute. It's going to melt sometime in July.
Yeah. Okay, well, hopefully it'll melt so you guys can get out and actually hit the road and play for some folks live.
No, that doesn't stop us anyway. It's it doesn't stop.
That's true. You're
I think he found it. He did get it.
Will, how are you?
Hey, good. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. We actually just started with Luke, so you came in right at the right time. So good stuff.
Okay, cool.
So this new album that is coming out or due out on, I think, April 4th is what I've got, Higher Up in the Hills. It's y'all's first album, I think, in 4 years. The first two singles have been, have a pretty rockin' flair. Dogs and Horses, which we just heard. Nothing's Working, which we'll play in a little bit. Your last couple albums have been more rock sounding than some of your early work. Is that fair to say? And what's in store for us on the rest of this album?
I feel like they've all been different. I mean, there's a pretty obvious progression probably throughout the course of whatever it is, 7 or 8 albums at this point. But a lot of that I think comes from the live show, and we spend 90% of our business and our time is spent on stage, like gigging. That's really where we do our thing. So the live show definitely dictates what we end up working with in the studio. I think this record in particular is probably one of the more cut and dry. I feel like it was kind of a simplified version. We're a 5-piece band these days. Everything that's on the record is kind of what we've been playing on stage. A lot of the songs we've been playing for a few years already, or it was stuff that was like buried deep in the notebook. So there's a broad spectrum of songs that made it onto this record. So you're going to hear stuff from like 4 or 5 years ago that I think we did well to make it all cohesive, though. And part of that is because it's essentially the 5 of us doing what we do. We didn't get really fancy and overdub 1,000 things. And in the past, we've gotten a little more experimental with synth guitar and with some, really wild effects. And we didn't really go that route this time. This is just kind of like what we sound like if you're in a room with us, hopefully. That's the goal. Anyway, that's what we're shooting for.
There's also, I think on this one, it's mostly pretty rocking, but there's there's a couple kind of acoustic tracks too. And there's a little bit of stuff with kind of a country flavor, and there's a little stuff with kind of a acoustic flavor. So it's still a good balance, but probably 80% rock record, I think.
That's a good balance, right? And then the next question we were going to ask was kind of about the evolution, your music evolution. And you kind of explained that you've recorded the songs that are going to be on the new album. You've already been playing, they were written probably, a few years ago. So would you say that this record is kind of an example of the evolution of your music or your songwriting? Is there an evolution there as well?
I think definitely there's going to be some stuff on there that we've been playing and that we were already really familiar with. And then there's a lot of stuff on there that we we ended up with 14 tracks on this record. And I think that was more than anybody expected. The idea has always been to bring more to the table than we need and make sure that if there's some stuff that doesn't get wrapped up or doesn't feel right, we don't worry about it. But when we were done tracking, which we did over the course of a few months, we kind of did this one in 3-day stretches, 4-day stretches, whenever we could fit it in between gigs. When we were done, there was no fat on it. There was nothing that we weren't really feeling. Best of both worlds. There was some stuff we were coming up with and we were still working on parts right up until the last days. I think one of the last songs that's on the record literally got done the last day. We didn't even expect to do it. It was just like, we've got one more day. We finished all this stuff that we needed. What else are we going to try? And it was just something we'd never even worked on and never really done together. And we knocked it out in an afternoon. So it's a great feeling when that stuff kind of comes together. It's also a great feeling when you already know what you're doing and what the vibe is and what you're feeling. And you can just go in and put that down too. I like both methods. But in general, as far as evolution goes, yeah, we're in a cool place. We've done a lot of records. We've been at this for 15 years. This was the easiest and most fun record to date. So that it feels like we're doing something right.
For sure.
So Will, out of curiosity, what's the writing process like? Is there a primary writer? Do the two of you get together and write and then take it to the band? Does the band bring stuff to you guys? How do you put together the songs that wind up on an album?
So they're all a little bit different, I think, but typically Luke or I are writing solo, bringing a song in that's kind of pretty much written, and we have a pretty good idea of what we want it to sound like, or like it'll be kind of obvious, like this one's got a rock feel to it or whatever. Sometimes we go from that, and Luke and I have co-written quite a bit of stuff, and that'll usually be like something where I've been working on something that I started solo, and I'm like, Luke, I'm a little stuck here. and he can get it across the finish line. Or Luke might be like, I'm working on this tune, don't quite have the perfect chord progression for it yet. And I'm like, what about we try this or something like that? So Luke and I do a lot of collaboration after we have an idea that we're already bringing to the table. And then with the band, it's the same kind of thing. We let the arrangements kind of develop pretty organically. And we'll usually like jam on something in the rehearsal space quite a bit, just to give it a little room to breathe and see where everybody starts to feel comfortable or excited about like a part or something. But so in terms of the bones of the song, we're usually bringing them in solo and then filling them out with the boys.
Nice. Well, whatever you're doing is working. You guys have been able, I think, Luke, as you alluded to, you've been doing this for 15 years or so. You had a very successful career as a band, but you've also done so from your home state of Maine, no moving to Nashville or LA or New York. That's not very common. What's been the key to kind of building the band's success despite being an outlier in that regard?
I would venture to say that despite is completely the wrong way to think about it. I mean, honestly, we owe everything to Maine and the greater Northeast. Like if not for kind of, I don't know how to explain it best, but it's just the diehard fans. It's like we've become like a part of people's families here, it feels like. And they keep us going because without the Northeast, if we were stuck on the road and traveling, we love to get out there and tour farther and farther away, but you make less and less money the farther away we get from home. And we can kind of, I know people do it in Texas too. They can just tour Texas and do that circuit for the whole year and they make a really good living. And I feel like we're lucky we get to do kind of the same thing in the Northeast. We can, stay within a day drive. We're working every single week. In the summer, we're working sometimes 6 days a week, all within like shooting distance of home, kind of. So we're lucky, the fans and the state. And I think part of that comes from our family and our father. He had kind of established himself as part of the Maine identity a long time ago. We kind of got to grab onto that in the very beginning. Our first 2 shows ever were opening for our dad at some of like his favorite venues in front of some of his favorite crowds. And that's always been a thing. So the Mallett family has always kind of been really, really at home here and been really taken in by the state. So not despite, but I think we are also lucky that this timing, when we first started out 15 years ago, you could still sell CDs. You were making some money off of the CDs that you sold. That's not necessarily a thing anymore. But just the age of the internet and the way that everything works now, in the beginning, we were booking ourselves. We were booking, 45-day tours across the country by ourselves on our computers at home. We were making music here and we were spreading it as best we could. Social media is something that's kind of like grown bigger and bigger over the course of our career. So it's not something that was happening. It's like we didn't break with Instagram. We didn't even have Instagram when this band started. That came like 2 years into this band. So everything has been a learning curve all the way. But it's definitely made that particular part of this easier, being able to do it from here, keeping our home base where we're comfortable and where the inspiration is and where our families are. And if anything, I hope it adds to the authenticity. I hope it makes it feel a little more honest. Like we're very proud of where we're from and the roots that we have here. And I think we're consciously trying to put that into our music all the time. So to pick up and go to Nashville just wouldn't feel like us. Even though me and my brother grew up in Nashville, our dad took us there in the 90s. We spent 10 years in Nashville. He was doing the singer-songwriter thing. We had some great friends. We met lots of cool people. There's a lot of people that we're still in touch with and we get to visit when we go down and we're gigging in town. We have friends we can stay with. But the band as a whole and the brand is very tied to home.
Nice. And that really embodies the concept of roots, right?
I think that's so.
Part of the existence of this show, So you talked about your dad and how you opened for him a couple of times, like your first couple of shows. I love that. That is such an awesome story. And you mentioned some of his favorite places. So what about you guys? What are some of your favorite places to play? Imagine that you've played a lot of legendary rooms and venues. So what are some of your favorites that really stand out?
Go for it, Bill.
That we get asked that question once in a while, and it's always really tough because really great places, and a lot of the time, whatever gig we're playing that night is going to be our new favorite gig or whatever. Yeah. And that's not, it's not quite that extreme, but really it all kind of depends on the crowd and that kind of stuff. And we've had some really good shows in some really random places, you know, and we've had some venues where we might have a great night, and then next time we go back and it's a little slow or whatever, or the crowd's a little tamer or something like that. So it's kind of, you never really know what to expect. But playing in our kind of hometown show at the State Theater in Portland, Maine, we've been doing that once a year for a few years, and that's always like some good energy. And then I don't know, yeah, they're all good. Outdoor, playing outside on the water is always something that we enjoy. And then also just getting out there, like some trips to like Arkansas, Oklahoma, Colorado kind of jump to mind as like, it's also great to be out on the road, playing a new venue, maybe playing on a bill with some bands that we've never played with before and some new buddies. And like, that's a ton of fun.
Luke, any standouts for you?
I mean, it doesn't get any better looking from the outside than like our hometown show. Like Will said, we get to do the State Theater. That's a venue that I would jump in my buddy's car and go see Primus play when I was in high school. It was like a 2.5 hour drive. It was a big deal to go to Portland and go see a show at the State Theater. So the fact that we get to do that annually now is kind of unbelievable. But again, like it's a very small part of our business. Like we're not playing state theaters everywhere we go. A lot of times we're playing like Sticky's Rock and Roll Chicken Shack in Little Rock is one of my favorite places in the world, you know, like no joke. Stuff like playing Coyotes in Denver. It's a real place. Yeah. It's an amazing venue. Yeah. So the dive bar, the bar gigs, playing Pootie's Roadhouse in Spicewood, Texas is one of the coolest places I've ever been in my life. And we went back like 3 or 4 times, you know. So sometimes you find this spot and you don't know what it's going to be. And it ends up being one of the very coolest. And yet probably a lot of that is owed to the people in the crowd, like the people that come out or the people that you meet. That's everything.
I think that's a new bucket list item for us, is to do a live broadcast from Pootie's.
Yeah,
I think that'd be fun.
It is
Pootie's
an unbelievable place.
Great,
Spicewood, just outside of Austin. And like you can see some legendary stuff there. You would have no idea what's going to be there. Like it's got a lot of history.
That's good. Love it. So we're going to ask about the upcoming tour and stuff in a minute, but let's dial up another track to show off for folks. We'll go to break with Nothing's Working, also from the upcoming album, but it's out now on Spotify and other places for your full listening pleasure. When we come back, we'll dig into Luke and Will's musical background, a little bit more about their dad and that lineage, plus some cool collaborations they've been working on. Don't go away. This is Roots Music Rambler.
You off my mind. Spent almost all of my nickels and my dimes. Yeah. Guess I love you, baby, till the end of time, 'cause nothing's working. I met some people out on the internet. I flew around the world upon a private jet. Tried getting everything that I could get, but nothing's working. I tried the alcohol and marijuana too. Nothing you keep me from forever loving you. Now I'm wondering just what I'm gonna do, 'cause nothing's working. I had a vision and the vision never stopped. I called a lawyer. Empower.
Claire is practicing her breathing for her upcoming yoga retreat in Bali. Has she ever done yoga before? No. But Claire worked with Empower on her savings and investment strategy. She got good at money, so she can be a little bad. Empower. Invest well, live a little. Join our 19 million customers today at empower.com.
Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Investing involves risks. You may lose money. Advisory services are provided for a fee by Empower Advisor Group, LLC, EAG, a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Om Namaste.
Been 2 days now and no sleep. And the ship's stores got lost when the last time I got tossed. Went drifting in the deep. And the limbs hang above my head as I float through this forest of green. Seeing the block each ray of sun. Got these wounds from all I've done. Doing my best to keep them clean. But I'm seeing lights along the river, and I'm traveling all on my own. Seeing smoke up in the sky, there's a gleam here in my eye. I'm coming home, and this loneliness beside me been with me most of my life. She'll keep me from the cold, says she'll stay when I get old. Says she wants to be my wife, and a shadow on my shoulder.
That's an older tune from the Mallett Brothers, Lights Along the River, from their 2015 album by the same name. I wanted to play that one so people hear kind of the difference in then versus now and the vibe of those tunes. Plus, I happen to dig that tune a lot. Will and Luke Mallett join us on Roots Music Rambler. So let's dig into the musical roots. You mentioned and alluded to your father in the previous segment. He is a fairly well-known musical person. David Mallett is probably most well-known for being the author of the Garden Song, which is a very familiar tune to people who are tuned in to folk music especially. So I imagine music was always there, but how did the two of you come into playing and writing? Was it dad driven, or was it something you guys picked up along the way just watching him?
It was always available. There was always a whole lot of encouragement. Whatever it was that we wanted to do, it didn't matter. He always had guitars kicking around. I remember being a little kid and him bringing home, we grew up, the house my brother was born in actually was Dixmont, Maine. And it was right near the Vic Firth drumstick factory, which is up in Newport, Maine. So you could go to the dump in Dixmont and get like bags of drumsticks. My dad would bring these back to us. So we just had drumsticks laying around and pianos around and guitars around and whatever else we wanted to get into. So it was always encouraged, but it wasn't like, I wouldn't call it driven, not by any means, but we were immersed in it. You know, he lived the life. He didn't do anything else for his 73 years. He started when he was 16 years old, I think. And he went right up until the end. So it was always there. And being in Nashville, I think, especially in that era in the 90s, it was like kind of I don't want to say the end, but it was the changing of the guard almost, that era. It was like Towns was gone and Steve Earle was like leaving Nashville and Garth Brooks was coming in and things were changing a little bit. So to live next door to Bella Fleck, you know, stuff like that is some stuff we didn't have the same appreciation for then that we did now. But looking back, it was a very plausible thing. Like, yeah, my dad works in the music business. Everybody I know works in the music business. This is something people do for a living. It's not weird. And then you come back to rural northern Maine, and our dad is definitely the only one from Sebec, Maine doing this for a living, you know, up until we started. So having that perspective, having it seem like a plausible and like realistic thing for us to go do, I think was super important, because it could have been easy to not think of it as realistic and just go get some other job. But in that way, yes, it was super helpful and it was very, very influential as far as choosing it as a career. As far as us playing music together, that was even something that happened later. My brother picked up guitar way earlier than I did. I was always words. I wanted to write. I wanted to be an English major. Words were everything for me for a long time. And even in previous musical projects, I was just a front man. I wasn't playing guitar. I wasn't playing an instrument. I kind of played drums a little bit. But when this band started, other projects had ended. My brother came back to Maine. The timing, everything was just falling into place. And I had been playing guitar a little bit more. And really, the first 2 years of this band was me like figuring it out. And we were a 6-piece at that point. We had 4 guitars on stage. So it didn't feel like I had a lot of weight on my shoulders. I had a lot of room to kind of figure it out, to learn as I went. So that was in my 20s. You know, we were into our 20s before we actually started making music together. But by the time we did, it felt like a supernatural, super easy thing to do. It was never difficult. It all just kind of worked well together. And I think vocally, I think lyrically, I think musically, I think we were more on the same page than we maybe ever would have thought when we were like 15, 16 years old, because we were into totally different stuff back then. So somewhere along the line, it all just came together. And that's probably because of our dad. And that's where it all stemmed from.
I can't even imagine that encouragement from your father probably meant everything. You know, whose idea was it to start the band for you guys to play together?
Probably our bass player. It's probably Nick's idea. Yeah, I think Nick was the one that was like, we're doing this, kind of taking charge of the whole thing. But originally, it happened very, very fast. It was the three of us, me and Nick, had been in bands together, and we were living together, and Will came to Portland, Maine, and was like staying with us and kind of dipping his toes into the music scene here, which is a really, really rich music scene. And it took right off. So between the three of us sitting around a living room, realizing these songs are sounding super cool. Like, we got something super cool here. Everything else just kind of took off. We grabbed some guys real fast. We knew just who to talk to. We knew what we wanted it to sound like at the time. We were kind of going for a string band vibe even early on, thinking we'd play bar gigs, maybe get like a weekly spot at Bramhall Pub, like who knows. But within the first year, the gigs just really, they got bigger and bigger, and the venues got cooler and cooler, and people started finding us. So it was easy from there on. It took us away from whatever plans we had before.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing there is Will was the key.
Yeah.
What caused you to move home, and was it to start a band or was it some other reason?
Well, kind of to start a band, to go to Portland. I got out of college. I was a history major, and I thought maybe I'd teach or something like that. Moved back to the hometown, spent a summer working construction, had a ball. But in October, this is just fun to think about. We were jacking camps. So it was getting pretty cold, and I'm down underneath a camp, which for people not in Maine is like a cabin, you know, down there with a little small spade, just shoveling out dirt, like in the wet mud all day long. And I was like, all right, I gotta do something else. So before I made any big responsible moves, I thought, I'll go to Portland. We'll try to start a band with Luke and Nick, who had already been talking about it, and we'd been discussing it for a little bit, but it was, let's go try the band thing for a little bit, and then I'll do something with my life later on or whatever. But like Luke said, like we were really kind of amazed at how the people started coming to the shows started getting better. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, we had a record done, and it was like, okay, this is going pretty well. Let's stick with it for a little bit.
Nice. Just out of curiosity, did you guys ever write with your father? What did he think about your all's work?
Yeah, both of us on his later records. I think we both have writing credits in the last couple, and he was the best. You know, he was the best. Like he just loved it. He loved our involvement. My sister too. He loved bringing us on stage, sharing the stage with us. I think was probably his happiest moments. Like, you didn't see him smile all the time. He was generally a pretty stressed out guy, but when he got to like share that feeling with us, you could see him just really happy. And the same with my sister. And the same with the studio stuff, because we got to be around for the last few records and be involved. And I wrote a verse for Celebration, which is one of the songs that he was really, really proud of on that last record. I think him and Will had like 3 co-writes on that last record. So yeah, it was like two or three. It was super fun. It was super easy. And he was an intimidating figure. He was an intimidating guitar player, and he was an intimidating writer. It's hard for me to imagine looking back that I could put out some of the words that came out of him. I mean, he was just a poet, you know? So if I can get even half that good, I'll be stoked. But for him, it was like, I wrote a verse on Celebration, and the song was never the same without me. If I wasn't there on it, it wasn't the same song. He wasn't as excited about it. So that was kind of a cool feeling for me.
Oh, that's awesome. And Will, you've now got children. Are you sticking banjos in their hands and stuff?
Oh yeah. We're having tons of fun with that. My daughter's just a year and a half old right now, but like, I just play guitar and banjo all the time, and she's into it, and she's shaking little shakers.
Aw.
And she's walking up and plucking on the banjo and stuff, and it's fun. And I joke about I'm going to make her learn this and that when she's 2 or whatever, but I'll take it easy. But definitely just going to try to do that same thing where there's plenty of instruments around, a lot of encouragement. I got another one on the way.
Woo!
So, when they get older, if they're into it, that's cool. But no pressure.
I was going to say,
good.
family
That's
business.
right.
You got to keep it going.
For
Yeah.
sure. Wow. Talk about the lineage. That's amazing. And it's so heartwarming. I love these stories. So just to switch gears a little bit, beforehand, Jason was telling me about, and I don't mean to steal his question, but he was telling us about a collaboration that you guys had with Chuck Leavell, and it came about from you connecting with him on a TV show. Can you tell us about that?
So a friend of ours that's kind of fan of the band, she's a friend of my wife's, she emailed us one day and she said, I got an opportunity for you guys. You got to do it. Chuck Leavell hosts a show on PBS about forestry. Every episode takes place in a different state, and he features a band from that state. And I'm friends with the producer, and I suggested you guys as the band from Maine. I remember we were loading into the Knickerbocker Cafe in Rhode Island when this was going on. And I told the dudes, hey, we got to do this. Everybody said, yep, sounds good. Yeah, so we learned a couple of tunes that he wanted to sing, a Rolling Stones song and an Allman Brothers Band song for the filming of the episode, which is like it was a real concert, but kind of like semi-staged for TV with they brought in a crowd and stuff. And then he learned one of the tunes. We did an album of old Maine folk songs that were folk songs from the Maine lumber camps in the 1800s. So it was kind of specific, but he was all psyched about that as a forestry enthusiast. So we played one of those, and yeah, just great time, super friendly guy, and was just kind of like, hey, would love to play with you guys anytime, like sometime down the road or whatever. So it was a crazy idea that somebody had when we had talked about keys for that tune, like, hey, why don't we ask Chuck? And I remember thinking, yeah, okay,
Sure.
But I sent him an email and he emailed me back 2 minutes later and he was like, yeah, I'd love to do it. So
wow.
We were super pumped. He's the best.
So he's keys for the Allman Brothers, he's keys for the Rolling Stones, and he's keys for the Mallett Brothers.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, not bad.
Well, he made a gracious appearance at the very least. I think he's musical director for the Rolling Stones, which is a really crazy title to have.
Yeah.
He recorded his parts at Capricorn down in Georgia. So it was even that there's so much history coming out of that studio to have part of this song come out of Capricorn Studios is really, really wild.
I would strongly advise you to just tell people he's your keys player.
Yes. Yeah, you can tell him.
Go with that. See where it
you
takes
can tell him. I will neither confirm nor deny any of this.
That's good stuff. That's awesome. So I've always been really fascinated with Chuck. He's obviously a brilliant musician, but he's so plugged into the whole environmental causes with the forestry and whatnot that he very boldly and bravely represents. I know he's testified in front of Congress and stuff like that. It seems like he never sleeps, but I really admire him. It's really neat that you guys have worked together with him on the show and the music you've done together. All right. New album in April. I know you've already got a spring summer tour plan rolled out there. Where can folks see you play and where can they find you guys on their interwebs in the meantime?
Playing all over the place. We're playing a whole lot of stuff in the Northeast. We've also got plans to try and get back to Texas again sooner than later. We've got plans to be in Virginia coming up, and you can find us at the MallettBrothersBand.com. It's 2 L's and 2 T's. That's the spot. We keep it as updated as we can. We're lucky we got a booking agent who just really hustles, and he keeps us about 6 to 8 months out, where I'm already booking into next fall. So that's great. There's lots and lots of tour dates posted, and there's lots more coming. And the socials are fun. We're in charge of all that. It's us in the van. So you can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook to keep that as active and as fun as possible while we're stuck in a van for 8 hours a day. We'll maybe make some reels out of it. So It's a good place to.
You might as well. You might
It's
as
a good
well.
place to find us.
Great content there.
Content is king.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, it's really great to have you guys on the show. We love the new music. Can't wait to hear more when the album drops. Links are in the show notes for all of you fine folks to do the same and enjoy the Mallett Brothers. Luke, Will, thank you guys both so much for spending some time with us tonight.
We appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having us on.
Sure
Well,
thing.
let's go to break with one of the songs that I've heard the Mallett Brothers play with Chuck Leavell. This is the album version of The Falling of the Pine from their 2017 album by the same name. It's the Mallett Brothers. Don't go away, folks. Pickin the Grinnin segment's coming up, and this is Roots Music Rambler.
Lumberman, I want it. With courage bold, undaunted. Prepare to come to shanty before your youth decline. Cause spectators will wonder, and they'll gaze on you and ponder. Cause the noise exceeds the thunder at the falling of the pine. As the winter it grows colder, like wolves we do grow bolder. Our axes we will shoulder, all pledges to resign. To the woods we will advance, where our axes clear to glance. And like brothers we'll commence to fall the stately pine. And the shanty is a station, and the woods are occupation. Every man unto his station, and some to score in line. We'll take 8 foot off a block, with a chip at every knock. And the wolves in dirty shock at the falling of the pine.
This episode is brought to you by Honda. Introducing the all-new, all-terrain Honda Passport Trail Sport, the most off-road capable Honda Passport Honda has ever dreamt up. The Passport features increased ground clearance, roof rails on all trims, and available specially developed all-terrain tires. And you'll stay comfortable with tri-zone climate control and available features like heated and ventilated front seats and a panoramic moonroof. Learn more at honda.com/passport.
Welcome back to Roots Music Rambler. How about them Mallett Brothers? Fun conversation. Love the musical lineage and heritage there.
Yes.
And I can't wait to hear the rest of the sound. Those first 2 cuts are really good. And I'm tickled that we were able to get them to come on the show to talk about the new album, which drops April 4th, I think. So
Yes.
fun times.
They, I just have to say when they were talking about playing on stage with their dad and how he encouraged them to follow their musical pursuits, I was getting a little weepy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh yeah.
I love that stuff.
Yeah. As I can tell you as a dad and it's as a parent, it's not a gender specific thing, but putting myself in their shoes or even their dad's shoes, you just swell up with pride. Like when I go to a ball game or a concert with my son now, I look over at him and he's enjoying the same music I'm enjoying. And I get all fired up. It's like, it's a good thing to bond with your children or your parent or whatever. So good stuff. That was fun. I loved having them on the show. It was good.
For sure.
All right. It's time for the Pickin the Grinnin segment, in addition to the Mallett Brothers, of course. This is the part of the show where Frank and I give you a suggestion, a recommendation. It might be a musician, might be a band, might be a singer-songwriter, might be an album, might be a song, just something we've been listening to. It could be anything. Something that's making us grin, as opposed to how we started the show with stuff that pisses me off. We're finishing on a good, positive note here with Pickin the Grinnin. And I am going to go first this time.
Again? All right.
I'm going to go first.
That's cool.
I don't always. In fact, a lot of times I throw you under the bus, but I'm going to go first this time. I mentioned him earlier because he opened up for Charles Wesley Godwin here in Louisville. Caleb Cottle, really, really good singer-songwriter, young guy, really talented, did a great job working the room, does a good job live shows, got a decent band behind him. I really liked his songs. I think he's got a lot of promise. He fits in that Brent Cobb, that singer-songwriter, with an interesting perspective. He's even got a kind of a signature hat that he wears and stuff like that. So I just really enjoyed his stuff. I had heard several of his songs before the show. I knew I was probably going to like him, but he's got a really cool personality and he was really good to watch live. So Caleb Cottle, he's also playing at Bourbon and Beyond in September. So I'll probably get to see him again. He's my pick for this week. What you got there, Frank?
Very good. And I've seen his name since you went to that show and we chatted about him very briefly. I've been seeing his name coming up in different places too. So it seems like he's starting to reach a wider audience. So that's good. My pick in the Grinnin is inspired by our pre-interview conversation as well. You were talking about, going to see Ryan Adams, like you're kind of maybe becoming a stalker, or maybe Karen is. I don't know. But anyway, that's for another. That's one of those like true crime podcasts.
I will wind up on a list by the end of the summer. That's what's going to happen.
All kidding aside, yes. So my pick in the Grinnin is a band that Ryan Adams was a part of, Whiskey Town. And I loved Whiskey Town back in the 90s. Stranger's Almanac, that album. The CD, I played it over and over and over and over again. And other than like in the 90s is when I first fell into like this roots rock alt country obsession. It started with Sunvolt and then it kind of led me to Whiskey Town. And oh man, just some of those songs like Houses on the Hill, that song, it tears me apart to listen to it. So yeah, Whiskey Town, just soundtrack of my early to mid 20s and just really excellent songwriting. And if you haven't listened to Whiskey Town, I certainly recommend it. And then, Faithless Street. Yeah. Faithless Street is the other album that I wore the shit out of. So yeah, good stuff.
Well, they definitely are. And Whiskey Town is basically the band that gave Ryan Adams his, step up into the spotlight. And then he obviously spun off and became a solo artist. Caitlin Carey was the kind of main second person, the fiddle player and occasional lead singer, the female voice in Whiskey Town. Yes. There were other band members, but those were the two primary folks and incredibly talented. I really, really like their music. And I, for some reason, Whiskey Town resonates with me more so than a lot of Ryan Adams solo stuff does, just because there's some different perspective and whatnot. But I just love the songs. And I think they started, if I remember the story correctly, they got together, they started the band basically when Ryan discovered Graham Parsons and started kind of going back and listening to what became alt country. And then Whiskey Town, of course, became kind of one of the flagship early alt country bands. So definitely the genesis of a lot of the music that we listen to these days, at least, Frank and I anyway. So good stuff. Whiskey Town's A plus music. Go check it out.
What you said too about Whiskey Town resonating with you more than Ryan Adams solo stuff, I agree with that 100%. I don't dislike Ryan Adams solo stuff, but there are like certain songs that I'll listen to on repeat, but like Whiskey Town, like full albums, I still will just play from top to bottom. So definitely more my jam than Ryan Adams solo stuff.
From a vinyl record player perspective, if I throw a Whiskey Town album on and I've got people over to my house, inevitably 3 people are like, who the fuck is this? They're really good.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's one of those bands that you discover, 20 years later, but they're really, really good. Good stuff. Good show. Right. We had a wide range of emotions on today's show.
Yes. Should we have another session to talk about these emotions?
Well, I
maybe
probably,
off camera.
I think I may go pop a gummy or something to calm myself down. But,
ooh, that's an idea.
Yeah. So there you go. Roots Music Rambler is a production of Falls & Partners, copyright 2025, editing and technical production by Resonate Recordings. Our theme music is Sheepskin and Beeswax by Gentacorum. Join us online at rootsmusicrambler.com and make sure you mash that subscribe or follow button so you remember to join us for the next Hoe-Down and Throwdown. She's Frank.
And he's Falls.
And whatever you do, kids, ramble on.